start with contracting sprites. Chapter 71, its answer was firm and forceful. Hello, please show us your contract certificate. Contract proof. What the hell was that? Su Hao pondered. Why did it seem like it's proof to show that your son is your son? Indeed. The process of applying for a Sprites ID card was a power dissuasion. At this point, the staff member added with a professional smile, it's proof of the Sprite care house or related facilities when buying Sprites. If you can use Sprite commandeering, sir, using a Sprite commandeering that can clearly be identified can also prove your contractual relationship with Sprites. Understood. It turned out that the instructions stated that they needed Sprite trainers to accompany the Sprites just for show. Su Hao was considering which type of Sprite commandeering to use. Accelerate? Not obvious enough. Persist? Persist your head. Protection? The relationship with the Sprite couldn't be told. I think I can only use summon. At this point, Coach Xiang said from the side, just take out that certificate when you were applying for official Sprite trainers. Su Hao was rendered speechless. He took out a piece of paper. It was the certificate given to him during the application process. The ID wasn't issued to him, but this temporary certificate had a seal on it. There was also information about the Sprites he registered on it. Silkworm Baby and Little Fire Crow. After registering the information as he had hoped, Su Hao heard the staff member speak again. To apply for an identity card, your Sprite needs to have basic behavioral abilities. There's a small test question for your Sprite later. Su Hao looked at Coach Xiang. There was such a thing? Coach Xiang widened his eyes filled with the words I don't know either. He coughed a little awkwardly and said, after all, I've never done it for a Sprite. It's just hearsay. Su Hao was fooled directly by him. But the registration had already been done. If he said that he wasn't going to do it now, wouldn't that be a little too? He could only blame himself for trusting the instructor too much. He neither saw it clearly nor asked clearly. Everything was written at the side. Luckily, Su Hao didn't wait long. Shortly after, the staff member led him, Silkworm Baby and Little Fire Crow into a large room. The tall and muscular Coach Xiang was stopped outside the door. Su Hao looked over. The large room was like a classroom. The classroom of a children's class. Sprites of small sizes squatted, crawled, and sat in their seats, while Sprite trainers like Su Hao stood at the back like parents. The moment he entered, Su Hao saw a little ground wolf barking and running out. Behind him, a middle-aged woman was shouting, "Hey, where are you going? Sit down. Come back here." This was probably the kind of behavior that wouldn't meet the requirements. A staff member walked over and announced, "This small test won't take too much time. To cut a long story short, let's invite our examiner, Ms. Dancer, right now." A Sprite about 1.3 to 4 meters tall walked in with graceful steps. Its head was like a blooming purple flower, with a few tiny petals and calyxes hanging down to form limbs. The torso position in the middle was covered by 2 intersecting red petals. It was a dance dress that looked like it had a fork in it. As it walked, white flowers appeared. Flowers of the moon have turned into Sprites. Moon Dancer. Su Hao recognized this type of Sprite. It was the evolved form of a seedling. Its final evolved form, the Moon Empress, had very harsh evolutionary conditions. It had little to do with strength and age. Instead, it was related to beauty. Only the most beautiful of the moon balls and moon dancers could evolve into the Moon Empress. There could only be one. Even if the Moon Empress left the race, no other moon dancers could evolve into its form before it died. A magical race. Miraculous Sprites. This moon dancer which came out to work was definitely not fated to be the Moon Empress. Moon Dancer walked onto the stage. It crossed its arms in front of its chest and bowed slightly. Phew. It felt like a performer, not an examiner. It deserved its name as a dancer. But it didn't waste any more time as it started the behavioral ability test. The test tested one's intelligence, ability to recognize, and mental state. It was known as common knowledge. The staff member released a picture and projected it onto the projector. Chirp 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 chirp. So, this moon dancer was supposed to interact with the sprites. Many sprites could understand what humans were saying, but humans, unless they were contracted sprite trainers, it was very difficult for them to understand what sprites were saying. But sprites could understand each other. Even though Su Hao didn't understand it either. One was Fufu, the other was Gurgle. How exactly did they communicate with different languages? He didn't understand what Moon Dancer was whining about, but he could understand the words on the picture. First question, look at the picture, 1001.jpg, and make your answer. Which building did the pictures represent? The hospital, the bus stop, the sprite care house, and the police station. Puff puff. Silkworm baby answered right away, Gurgle. Little Fire Crow also learned some general knowledge along the way. It knew that places with cars were called car stations. In the large room, the cries of the sprites rose and fell. There were actually not many sprites in this batch who applied for IDs. Including Silkworm baby and Little Fire Crow, there were only a total of 10 sprites. Before this, there was even a little ground wolf. Cough, little ground wolf. The entry-level moon dancer could easily tell who among the 9 sprites answered decisively, who hesitated, who was right, and who was wrong. But there was one Little Fire Crow that it could never be sure of. Intuition told Moon Dancer that this Little Fire Crow was clearly a little confused when it saw a more complex problem. But its answers to the questions were absolute, firm, and forceful. It was only slightly slower than the knowledgeable Silkworm baby. It didn't look like a sprite that was following along to study. After all, the answers to every question hadn't been announced, so they didn't know who had the higher rate of correct answers. It wasn't like there were no sprites who rushed to answer but got it all wrong. Those sprites even led other sprites astray. This Little Fire Crow didn't. Puff puff. How could the moon dancer not be able to judge any sprite itself? It held up a piece of cardboard that it had long prepared for the human staff standing at the side. There were a few words written on it, increase the force. No, increase the difficulty. New pictures appeared on the projector. Furry. Moon Dancer began to read the question. The pictures showed a car station, a train station, a high-speed rail station, and even a bus station. This question was extremely difficult. Before the Moon Dancer went on duty, it took it a long time of training to understand the differences between these several stations. How could that stupid crow know the answers? Its gaze was fixed on Little Fire Crow. Then, Little Fire Crow tilted its head and covered its head with its black wings, looking like it was frowning in thought. But the speed of its answers was second only to Silkworm baby. Its voice was unusually firm. Squawk! Squawk! The Moon Dancer was defeated. Among the last 9 sprites, only 3 were judged to have basic behavioral abilities. It was determined by the number of correct answers they had during the questioning process. Apart from Silkworm baby and Little Fire Crow, the other was an entry-level superpower gibbon. Its sprite trainer, a young man in his 20s, walked over to greet Su Hao. Impressive, one look and I can tell that you're an excellent sprite trainer who emphasizes on the comprehensive development of sprites' moral, knowledge, beauty and physical attributes. No, you're awesome too. But Su Hao found it strange. Logically speaking, Little Fire Crow loved to be in a daze most of the time. It was actually also a cultural crow? Little Fire Crow hovered over his head and kept calling out squawk, squawk. It then flew to Silkworm baby's side, showing its respect for boss. No matter what the boss said, it stood firm and strong, carrying it out to the end. Without any hesitation at all. Su Hao was rendered speechless. Chapter 72, Promotion. After being busy for half a day. The good news was that both Silkworm Baby and Little Fire Crow could apply for Sprite ID cards. The bad news was that it was almost 7. He was extremely hungry. They hadn't eaten much for lunch, and the application had dragged on till now. He climbed to the 6th floor and pressed the doorbell. A moment later, the door opened. When Mom Su saw him, she was very relieved. "You're not hurt, are you?" She looked around. Mom Su received a call from the school teacher in the afternoon, saying that the car was attacked on its way back to school. At that moment, her heart tightened. Even though the teacher on the phone said that he was fine. Later on, Su Hao also called to let her know that he was safe. But Mom Su could only be at ease after she saw him with her own eyes. When Father Su heard the commotion, he walked out to see Su Hao. He didn't say anything, but he showed a relieved smile. "Since you're not injured, quickly wash your hands and eat," said Mom Su. At a glance, Su Hao noticed the untouched dishes on the table. He couldn't help but say, "Mom, didn't I tell you guys to eat first? You don't have to wait for me." Mom Su casted a glance at him, then called for Silkworm Baby and Little Fire Crow to hurry in. "In the end," she said, "we didn't wait for you. We were waiting for Silkworm Baby and Little Fire Crow, the 2 great contributors. Come, come, come. Hurry, I've prepared both of your favorite food tonight." Then, she looked at Su Hao and said, "What are you waiting for? Heat up the dishes." Su Hao didn't have any status in the family. He exchanged a look with his father and walked towards the dining hall. At the dining table, Father Su and Mother Su kept asking about the situation in the afternoon. Su Hao simply explained. He didn't mention that he directly confronted the attacker and escaped from the mouth of an elite-level sprite. Since the school didn't mention those things, there was even less of a need for him to say it. It would just worry them. But Father Su and Mother Su were obviously not so at ease. At this moment, a piece of news was suddenly broadcasted on the TV. "Look, don't worry. This is a small probability event. Those attackers won't be able to do much." His parents were finally relieved. It seemed that the attacker was indeed insignificant in front of the Association of Sprite Trainers. No one was injured either. Su Hao knew a little more. But when he saw the news, he also let out a sigh of relief. A part of the screen was covered in thick mosaic, but Su Hao could still recognize that it was the stone giant that had been summoned away. It died a tragic death. Perhaps this rock giant was the one that exposed the leader's position. At night, Su Hao was using the computer to look up some materials needed for Silkworm Baby's evolution. He knew exactly what he needed. He was checking the price. There weren't many shopping centers selling items related to sprites, but there were still 3 stores selling them. Su Hao tapped away on the computer keyboard. The main ingredient for Silkworm Baby's evolution was wood element essence. That wasn't cheap. But for some supplementary materials, Su Hao could still get a discount of tens of thousand yuan. It was indeed not easy to raise a family. At this point, Su Hao's ears twitched. He heard Father Su and Mother Su talking about words like fraud, house in the living room, so he walked out curiously. "What house?" "There was a call just now. It said that you got first place in the joint examination. According to the incentive policy formulated by the City Affairs Bureau and Clearwater Real Estate, they want to reward you with a house." Mom Su pursed her lips. "Do you really think that I've read the public account for nothing? These scams are long outdated. They even said that you came in first in the joint examination. Is that even possible? Why don't they find a more reasonable reason? Are they treating me as a fool?" Mom Su was proficient in the prevention of cheating 36 techniques and also frequently watched various legal programs. She had seen at least 800 to 1000 scams, so she was very satisfied with herself for easily seeing through the trickery of a cheat. The public account and legal programs were not for nothing. Su Hao fell silent. Didn't he tell them that he had gotten first place? When he thought about it carefully, it seemed that perhaps, he really didn't say anything. He said with utmost cautiousness, "Mom, maybe he's not a liar." After much persuasion, Su Hao took out the joint examination certificate, the certificate awarded by the Heavenly King, and so on. It was then that Father Su and Mother Su finally understood that their son indeed had the ability to win first place in the joint examination. It wasn't fake. He even got his official sprite trainer license in the first semester of his third year of high school. Because Silkworm Baby had already broken through to entry level. How awesome was entry level? After Su Hao chose the sprite stream, Father Su and Mother Su had a slight research on it. After a while, Father Su and Mother Su sighed and said, "Silkworm Baby is indeed very hard-working. Of course, you're not bad either." Su Hao was puzzled. He always felt like he was here to just recharge his phone. As they spoke, Su Hao's cell phone rang. It was Uncle Pan. He swiped to answer the call. "Oh. Well. All right. Thank you, Uncle Pan." The call was related to the house. The location was in the Sprite Trainer neighborhood that Coach Xiong had mentioned. It was a high-end neighborhood specially provided for Sprite trainers by the Clearwater Real Estate. There were many facilities related to sprites in the neighborhood. Many high-level sprites were large in size, so it was even more necessary to raise them in a specialized training place. It was just that there were very few large-sized sprites in an city. "It's really a house." Mother Su didn't quite believe it. "It's absolutely true. There's no need to pay. You can go to the guild or city administration office tomorrow for inquiries." Su Hao said, "Apart from the house, Dad's position can probably be moved up a bit." Father Su was a civil servant in a career unit. It still wasn't a high level even if he was moved up, but at least he got a promotion. Mother Su worked at a private company, so the city administration couldn't manage it. However, Uncle Pan had said that as long as she was willing, he could arrange an idle job in the public service for her. The workplace was in the city, near the Association of Sprite Trainers, and was also near the house rewarded to them. One word to describe it was safe. Apart from being surprised, Su Hao also felt the weight of a sprite trainer. If it was before he transmigrated, even if he was the top scholar in the college entrance examination, a house was already considered a pretty good reward. However, in the sprite stream, the city administration bureau placed great importance on the first place merely in the joint examination. It may also have something to do with Heavenly King Zhou taking a fancy on you, and you getting a mid-level sprite trainer certificate. Su Hao didn't dare to be arrogant. With such a high status as a sprite trainer, it was impossible that he merely grasped extraordinary power. He had some guesses. But after all, he was just a high school student. The most important thing now was to nurture sprites and increase their strength. At the same time, as the joint examination ended, winter break arrived. Chapter 73, Prelude to Evolution. Uncity First High. On the Sprite Stream campus, cold wind raged, sweeping up dead branches and leaves. Su Hao locked his bicycle and immediately, a chubby light yellow figure jumped from the back seat of the bicycle to the ground, then crawled along the legs of his trousers to his back and laid there lazily. It looked like a light yellow backpack. A backpack that was pretty heavy. At the front of the bicycle stood a little fire crow. It stared at the frost-covered leaves for a long time before suddenly realizing that the human figure had gone far away. It flapped its wings dumbly and hurriedly chased after it. There weren't many people on campus. Many of his classmates were wearing thick winter clothes. In comparison, Su Hao's clothes looked a little thin. But he didn't feel the cold. After Silkworm Baby broke through to entry level, the feedback it brought was increasingly obvious. His physique had improved a lot. His body was in great condition and he no longer had to worry about catching a cold. Achoo! Su Hao rubbed the tip of his nose. It couldn't have been a cold, someone must be talking about him again. When they arrived at Class 2's classroom, the form teacher Old Chen had instructed the monitor to hand out the result slips. The result slips for the joint examination. Apart from the detailed rankings, the number of candidates they defeated, the number of wild sprites they defeated, and the number of candidates who eliminated them were all indicated on the slips. There were even comments written by Old Chen at the back. Su Hao's evaluation was very simple: good performance, keep up the good work. However, most of the students were sullen. Originally, they could have told their parents that they wouldn't be able to get into the top 100 and wouldn't be able to rank at all. This result slip, however, exposed their entire examination process. Some students looked at the eye-catching 0-1-1 on their result slips and felt very embarrassed. But they were also glad that they had defeated a wild sprite, not a complete zero. It's a pity that I didn't get first place in the final exam. Su Hao sighed. The final exam for the semester consisted of 3 compulsory academic subjects, as well as 6 other sprite subjects. The transcripts had been distributed long before the joint examination. However, because the sprite stream exam papers were too easy, Su Hao couldn't pull his marks back and eventually lost to Gu Linjiao by a few marks. The star student lost his first place. He lost the chance to get double crowns. What a pity, what a pity. On the podium, after handing out the result slips, form teacher Old Chen said, "Our sprite stream doesn't force you to attend winter break remedial classes like the neighboring cultural stream, but the main point was, the group of newbie sprite trainers who had just survived the devastation of the joint examination had pained expressions and dull eyes. Then they heard the announcement. But for the sake of your future, for the sake of your ability to successfully enroll in a sprite university, the school has decided to undergo a special holiday training. We aren't forcing you to participate in the special training, but according to what I know, the sprite stream of other high schools will also have corresponding special trainings. If you want to get into a sprite university, you can't relax for even a moment. Go home and have a good discussion with your parents tonight. Tell me your answers tomorrow." "Old Su, what do you think?" Lu Ren approached him. Su Hao didn't need to think or hesitate before replying, "Of course not." Envy and jealousy were written all over Lu Ren's face. Friendship points -10. Old Chen walked over and said, "Su Hao's ability has long surpassed yours. There's no point in participating in this special training. However, you can't waste such a good amount of winter break time. Have you thought about how to make use of it?" Looking at Old Chen's posture, it seemed like if Su Hao replied "I haven't thought about it," Old Chen would come up with a full list of suggestions and plans. But Su Hao had indeed made plans long ago. "I've already made plans," Su Hao said. "Right now, Silkworm baby has already reached entry level, and it has met the evolution requirements, so it will complete its evolution in the near future. After it evolves, I'll probably go to some special place to train it." The so-called special training venue referred to the New World. Right now, Su Hao wasn't an elite-level sprite trainer. He didn't have the right to explore the New World. But there were very few specific places open to the public. With his current status as an official sprite trainer, he could enter the place now. Well, the ticket prices were high. Lu Ren was confused. Old Chen naturally understood. She then asked, "What about the preparations for evolution?" "Every evolution of a sprite is extremely important and it concerns future development. We must prepare sufficient top-grade materials and choose the most suitable venue." Su Hao nodded. He had already placed an order. The materials needed would be delivered in the next 2 days. "I've already booked a wood element A-class venue at the Sprite Square for evolution in 5 days. The poorer sprite trainers could only choose environments that were compatible with their sprites as a place for evolution. For example, wood element sprites would choose forests in the wild. However, there was a specially constructed venue for sprites to evolve at the back of the training area in Sprite Square. It was said that the trees and other plants were transplanted from the New World, and the spiritual force level in the field was maintained at a higher level with special methods. The rental price for an A-grade wood elemental space was 30,000 Dragon Nation dollars for half a day. Su Hao didn't lack money for the time being, so he chose the best one. However, the time was also arranged to be 5 days later in the early afternoon. There was only this one wood element A-class venue in the entire city. Saturday morning? Don't worry, old Su, I'll go and cheer for your silkworm god. Lu Ren said and looked at the little charcoal tortoise who was basking in the sun by the window. When its spiritual force reaches its limit, I'm going to start evolving it, and then use the opportunity of evolution to break through to entry level. If I were to learn from your silkworm god, I don't know how many years I'd have to wait. When he got home, Father Su and Mother Su had already gone to look at the house. Su Hao comfortably occupied the laptop and assigned new tasks to the wide-eyed silkworm baby. Silkworm, evolution is imminent, you need to adjust your condition this time round. Otherwise, what do you think you should do if you evolve into a deformed butterfly? Silkworm baby, who was staring at the computer, was stunned. Although accidents wouldn't usually happen in evolutions, what if it really occurred? There were also many deformed monsters in movies and novels. For the sake of its insect life in the second half of its lifetime, Silkworm baby decided to quit for 3 days, 5 days on the computer. So it called out to Little Fire Crow and went to watch TV. In front of the computer, the interface appeared in Su Hao's eyes. Silkworm baby reverie butterfly. Evolution condition. 1. Wood element essence, 6 portions, compulsory. 2. Spirit points 150, compulsory. 3. Learning illusion element unique skills, compulsory. 4. 30 boxes of mid-level wood element jade powder, compulsory. 5. Length, growth stage 30%, compulsory. 6. 1 caddy of mist flower, 2 caddy of emerald jade bamboo, compulsory. 60% development of evolutionary potential. 7. Wood spiritual fruit, optional. 8. Optional. As long as the first 6 conditions were met, Silkworm baby would be able to evolve into a new form reverie butterfly. But just as Teacher Chen said, they should only prepare more materials for Sprites evolution, not less. In the evolution conditions on the interface, 6 portions of wood element essence were the bottom line that had to be met. Any less would raise the possibility of the failure of evolution. But it wasn't the upper limit. The upper limit was 10 sets, which was the largest amount Silkworm baby could absorb during the evolution process. Su Hao ordered 2 more sets. Wood element jade powder. He had ordered high-level jade powder. He had maxed out all the available supplementary materials, wood spiritual fruits, and so on. He was striving to develop the potential of evolution to 100%. It could allow Silkworm baby's battle power to soar greatly. Chapter 74, New Form, Dream Butterfly. Ordinary sprite trainers may prepare an excessive amount of elemental essences and jade powder when setting up an evolution venue for their sprites. After all, they can sell them even if they can't finish them. But for some unorthodox supplementary materials, only a high-level sprite cultivator can match them according to the conditions of the sprite. Even so, it's very difficult to perfectly unearth the evolutionary effects. With Su Hao's current level, the most he could give Silkworm baby was relatively common supplementary materials such as wood spiritual fruit. But after looking at the plan given by the interface, he gave off an O. Speaking of which, the evolution of sprites is actually a choice of genes. Some sprites have stable genes with only one evolutionary direction, but some others have many types of direction. Silkworm baby wasn't the most representative sprite. The most special sprite was the 3-tailed fox. At its initial form, there was no indication of any elemental inclination. But after a period of evolution, it could evolve into ice 6 tails, flaming 6 tails, sword 6 tails, etc. In comparison, Silkworm baby's evolution is actually an elimination of the pros and cons. Only those who are outstanding enough can step into the difficult evolution pathway. The evolution pathway of Reverie Butterfly was undoubtedly the most difficult. It had yet to be discovered. Especially when the spiritual force was greater than 150, many entry-level sprites couldn't do it. At the moment, there was a systematic spiritual force training method. Some sects also possessed special methods to train the physique, but Suhao rarely heard of people training their mental strength. Even for Silkworm baby, its current spiritual force was only slightly higher than the evolution requirement. Among the cultivation plans that Silkworm baby could unlock, there was none for mental strength enhancement. If the case was like this even for Suhao, it was no wonder that the evolution pathway of Reverie Butterfly had never been discovered. There were two other pathways. The six-winged flying silkworm was simpler. Apart from general materials, the other requirements include speed, agility, and the necessary material hard ironwood. The first six-winged flying silkworm appeared in a hard ironwood forest. On the other hand, Silkworm baby rolling pupae white-winged moth, which was more inclined towards productive sprites, required further lowering of the requirements. There was almost zero requirements needed. Even sprites that haven't been cultivated much can evolve into rolling pupae or even white feather moths. Silkworm babies that have undergone cultivation, especially speed training, often evolve into six-winged flying silkworms. But this silkworm baby's spiritual force is strong, and it has mastered the unique skill of the illusion element, so its evolution direction is already leaning towards Reverie Butterfly. To Suhao, there was no uncertainty, he only believed in one outcome. Saturday. Suhao brought the materials he had prepared, together with Silkworm baby and Little Fire Crow, to the back of Sprite Square, the evolution area. At Wood Element A-class venue. Standing outside the transparent glass window, Suhao saw how the inside of the venue was filled with straight trees connected to the dome. All kinds of plants were set up in the field, and the stream flowed smoothly. It was like a small-scale botanical garden. Looking at the appearance of the venue, Suhao couldn't even say the word expensive. It was worth it. "Sir, this way please." The staff member opened a side door before stating, "Please arrange the materials you need in advance to ensure that nothing goes wrong during the sprite's evolution." Suhao nodded. When he stepped in, he felt that the air became much fresher, and his mind trembled. He walked quickly to the center of the botanical garden and placed all kinds of materials that he had long prepared, around the place. For example, mist flowers and emerald bamboo. When Silkworm baby evolved, it didn't need to swallow them. It only needed to absorb the spirituality of the materials in succession during the evolution process so as to meet the conditions and successfully evolve. Suhao had also prepared hard ironwood. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why he hadn't prepared the necessary materials for evolution into a six-winged flying silkworm. But it's not for nothing. Absorbing the spirituality of hard ironwood can increase its physical strength a little. This absorption could only be done during the evolution process. Mist flower and green jade bamboo were not eye-catching among the many wood element supplementary materials. Suhao arranged the ingredients one by one, leaving only the wood element essence for Silkworm baby to consume. Gurgle, gurgle. When he walked out, Silkworm baby was looking around somewhat anxiously. It was commonly known as the pre-evolutionary anxiety syndrome. It had seen pictures of the six-winged flying silkworm and the rolling pupae. They were both a little ugly. However, Suhao told it that its evolution was an elegant and beautiful sprite. What Suhao said was probably true. What kind of sprite was it? Silkworm baby couldn't wait. But it still needed to wait. In about half an hour, the spiritual force in the A-class venue will reach its peak. By then, your sprite can enter. The staff member gave Silkworm baby a few more looks. This was the first time he had seen such a fat silkworm baby with such beautiful patterns. But after evolving into a six-winged flying silkworm, could it fly fast with such a fat body? Suhao. Chatterbox Liu's voice came from afar, I'm here to cheer your Silkworm god on. Su Hao looked over. He saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A nest of classmates. An old Chen. The corners of his mouth twitched. Such a big formation. We heard from Lu Ren that your Silkworm baby is going to evolve today, so we came over. Li Songting gave him and Silkworm baby a thumbs up while cheering, come on. Gulinjiao stuck her head out from behind him and waved her fair arms, shouting, come on. Su Hao was rendered speechless. He should have known. The whole school would have known about the things Lu Ren knew. But this feeling of being watched. It felt pretty good. Silkworm baby wasn't even nervous anymore. It raised its head high. Gurgle. Omega. After that, it laid on the transparent glass window again. Its big eyes stared straight at the evolutionary materials inside. They were all his things, he had to keep a close eye on them, there was no way he would miss them. The spiritual energy value gradually increased. At this time, even Coach Xiang came. I'm not late, right? Coach, why are you here too? Su Hao sweated. No one should know that Silkworm baby was about to evolve into a new form. Why did everyone look like they were here to bear witness to the big news? Because, I'm also very curious how strong your Silkworm baby can become after it evolves. The spiritual energy reached its peak. The staff member indicated that they could begin. Su Hao opened the special small wooden chest, revealing 12 portions of wood element essence. The wood element essence was in the form of liquid and were stored in crystal bottles. Su Hao opened the first crystal bottle. Gurgle. Silkworm baby took a little breath, and the emerald green liquid in the bottle entered its mouth. It swallowed the second and third portions. At the 10th portion, the energy in its body was accumulated to the maximum. It couldn't swallow any more. Gurgle. Su Hao looked at the staff member and said, open the door. The door of the evolution field opened, and Silkworm baby rushed in swiftly. The door closed again. On the other side of the transparent glass window, pairs of eyes looked at the light yellow body. It rushed to the center of the field, into the pile of materials. At this moment, the wood element essence that it had swallowed started to take effect. A dazzling light shone from Silkworm baby's body. Bright green threads emerged from its body, wrapping around it. It gradually interwoven into a huge light cocoon. The light cocoon constantly absorbed nutrients from its surroundings. Spiritual energy. The spirituality of the surrounding evolution materials flowed in bit by bit. Su Hao noticed that some of the evolution materials had dimmed a little. And the rays of the cocoon of light became brighter and brighter. It was like an embryo giving birth to a new life. 1 minute. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 30 minutes. The bright green light covered the entire arena, seeping out of the glass window. The experienced staff member covered his mouth and widened his eyes. Finally, the light after the big spill of rays quickly faded. The light cocoon shattered, turning into countless light dots scattering everywhere. The sound of the interface rang in Su Hao's ears. It had been a long time since he heard it. Ding! Your sprite, Silkworm baby, has completed its evolution and became a new form, Reverie Butterfly, changeable. Ding! Your sprite has comprehended a new unique skill during the baptism of evolution. Chapter 75, Building and Enchanting Dreams. Ding! During the baptism of evolution, your sprite comprehended a new unique skill, Dream Building. Dream Building, constructing dreams can be used as the foundation for other illusion-type unique skills. It can also extend to different usage methods. Note: the effect of dream building is related to the sprite's spiritual force, mental strength, intelligence, cognition, and so on. This unique skill. Dream building was no longer a unique skill in the general sense but more like an ability that could be used in multiple ways. This kind of unique skill was usually only mastered by gifted ghost element sprites. Even though he could use the interface to unlock the training plan, learning it would definitely take a lot of effort. The evolution really made Silkworm Baby mature. It can even learn unique skills on its own now. Su Hao looked at the various stats of Silkworm Baby. Oh no, Reverie Butterfly. Everything improved. Its spiritual force increased by about 30 points. Its physique improved by a lesser margin, because its absorption of the spirituality from the materials was mainly focused on the fog flower and the emerald bamboo during the evolution. My spiritual power increased by nearly 70 points. That was expected. Even though the dream butterfly's attributes were still considered wood element, its various characteristics were inclining towards illusion element. There was no need for Su Hao to unlock it to guess whether the next stage would be illusion or illusion wood. On the interface, there was another skill written on it. The term spiritual force enhancement cultivation also surfaced. Originally, he could only train Silkworm Baby's spiritual force a little through basic cultivation. From now on, mental strength is the key for the cultivation of Reverie Butterfly. And characteristics too. Characteristics, enchantment, changeable. Su Hao touched his chin. This is an undiscovered new characteristic. Wood element sprites had 3 characteristics: miraculous spring, thorns, and growth. The growth in sprites' spiritual force could promote plant growth, and was often more compatible with productive sprites. Miraculous spring could increase a sprite's endurance, while thorns could increase the lethality of its attack. As for bewildering dream, Su Hao didn't have time to think anymore. After the light dots of the cocoon completely dissipated, a beautiful sprite spread open its wings and flew away. It had 2 pairs of translucent light green wings, with very beautiful emerald green patterns on them. Its body was light yellow, different from its roundness in the past. The current dream butterfly was slim and graceful. Its short legs were still short, but the arms near its head grew a little longer. Its big eyes were still as watery as when it was in the Silkworm Baby phase. Above its head were 2 bright yellow antennae, with P-shaped ends inclined towards dark green. Like a pair of probes, they tinkled and observed their surroundings. Gurgle. 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 A crisp, pleasant voice traveled into everyone's ears through the enclosed space. It was the same cry, but with a different flavor. Silkworm's enormous transformation. It went from a chubby silkworm baby to an elegant reverie butterfly. Sigh, I can't hug it like a bolster anymore. Su Hao, you're silkworm god. No, this sprite. Lu Ren stuttered for a while before he finally managed to say something. Did it got swapped? This isn't a sprite. Old Chen and Chen Er were dumbstruck. They were as stiff as stone. Coach Xiang wanted to smoke a cigarette to calm himself down. When he saw the students and teacher Chen standing around, he could only put it back down. He looked at the graceful figure hovering inside the glass window. He fell into deep thought. What exactly had he seen? The sprite evolved from Silkworm Baby is. Su Hao took a deep breath. His eyes widened, and his palm pressed against the glass window. Shocking! Shocking! Crazily shocking! Silkworm Baby can actually evolve into a completely new form. Within the wood element field. Silkworm Baby? Ah, that's not right. Reverie Butterfly flapped its wings and circled a few times before landing in the middle of the materials pile. It took a look. There was still a lot left. It can't waste the materials. It flew up, spitting out threads which nimbly weaved into a net. The net netted all the evolution materials, enveloping everything regardless they had their spirituality sucked dry or not. Carrying a net of materials, Reverie Butterfly flew towards the exit. Gurgle gurgle. It flew and flew, landing on top of Su Hao's head. It could lie on his head again. Happy.jpg. Gurgle. Little fire crow flew around Reverie Butterfly continuously, going one round after another. Boss is flying. But why did Boss's appearance change so much after evolution? Why were Boss's wings different from his? Why was the dumb human looking at Boss with such a shocked expression? Why? Little Fire Crow sank into contemplation. After walking out of the training room, Coach Xiang still couldn't conceal the shock from inside him. Su Hao, have you thought about how to name this new sprite? Let's call it Reverie Butterfly for the time being. The little guy said that it comprehended a unique skill related to dreams. I think it's precisely its mental strength and outstanding comprehension of illusion unique skills that allowed it to evolve into a completely new form. Reverie Butterfly nodded. Yes, 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 continue to praise me. Coach Xiang felt that it made sense. During the Silkworm baby phase, it had already learned the unique skill from the illusion element stunning, as well as other high-level unique skills. This showed that it had a high comprehension of unique skills. The fact that it can successfully evolve should also have something to do with the materials you prepared. Coach Xiang wasn't a sprite cultivator, but he had a lot of experience. Analyze the materials you've prepared. It's best to write a paper. If you can reverse engineer the evolution conditions of the Reverie Butterfly, it'll be very, very beneficial for your future development. Silkworm baby evolving into a new form is not a small matter. The news will spread very quickly. Don't head out too far for the time being and keep your phone connected. Well, don't worry, this is a good thing. It depends on how much benefit you can get from it. Yunhua City. At the Sprite Evolution Research Center. This research institute had world-class equipment and various facilities. It was even more luxurious than the Association of Sprite Cultivators in Yunhua City. The owner of the research institute was none other than the sprite cultivator known as the pioneer of evolution who discovered the evolution of 18 new sprites, Chen Ping, Master Chen. At this moment, Master Chen, who was wearing glasses and had messy hair, started researching sprites like Silkworm baby again. The evolution conditions needed for the six-winged flying silkworm were determined by his hands. This is strange. There's clearly an unknown, unstable fragment hidden in the genetic sequence. Master Chen Ping was very sure that Silkworm baby had a third evolution pathway. It felt as if there was another area in a puzzle that was shrouded in black mist. That spot was an undiscovered area. But it had to exist. It was engraved in the genes of a sprite like Silkworm baby. But with his experience, he still hadn't achieved any valuable results even after researching for a long time. He couldn't even find the evolution direction of Silkworm baby's third pathway. At this moment, a young man who was similarly wasted ran hurriedly into the laboratory where Master Chen Ping was. He leaned on his knees and took 2 breaths before saying, Master, there's a silkworm baby that evolved into a new form.